Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. In this video, we're going to react to the terrifying last moments of bull rider Mason Lowe. Bull riding is a sport that really intrigues me. I would love to go see a bull riding event. It's just high octane, high adrenaline, high stakes. These bull riders, no matter how skilled you are, you're riding on an animal that weighs like 1,500 pounds, 1,000 pounds, whatever they weigh. They are huge. They are powerful. They are just, they're way bigger than you. So even if you can hold on tight, the amount of force that it's putting on your body, it's got to be so dangerous. And evidently here, this bull rider, I don't know how it happened exactly, but it looks like he met his end.
The crowd's roar filled the arena as the chute swung open and the bull exploded out, spinning and kicking frantically. Sitting atop 1,500 pounds of raging muscle and sinew was a lean, focused cowboy, his gloved hand clenched tight on the bull rope. Mason Lowe held on for dear life, his lithe body absorbing the bone-jarring bucks and gyrations of the massive beast beneath him. 8 seconds stretched into an eternity as man and bull battled, the crowd screaming encouragement. With a final mighty kick, the bull sent Mason, but not before he reached back and grabbed a fistful of fur. He had made the buzzer. The crowd went wild as Mason jumped to his feet, fist pumping triumphantly. This was Mason's element, and he was born to be here. Until one fateful day in 2019, when the cheers of the crowd turned to silent gasps of horror. What happened to this professional bull rider in those final terrifying moments? Join us as we uncover the tragic details of what would become the Denver Western Stock Show's first death in 113 years, and the third death in professional bull riders event history. From his first unsteady steps atop a milk calf on his family's Missouri farm, Mason Lowe was destined for greatness in the rodeo arena. The exhilaration and passion that 3-year-old Mason felt while riding a calf set him on a path that would define his life. Though his time on earth would be cut short at just 25 years old, Mason...
25, man, that's no age. That's such a young man.
Packed his days with enough grit, adventure, and die-hard cowboy spirit to fill the lifetimes of lesser men. Those who knew Mason speak in awed tones about his determination and skill on the back of a bucking bull, weighing over a ton and equipped with sharp horns and pounding hooves. Bulls are not for the faint of heart. But for Mason, the challenge of mastering these explosive beasts called to his wild western soul. As a lanky teenager, Mason skipped the high school rodeo circuit to test himself against older riders on the grittier amateur bull riding tours across the Midwest. The risks were greater, but so too were the rewards in adrenaline and self-assurance. While still finding his footing on the professional tours in his early 20s, Mason suffered his share of painful cuts and injuries, but he refused to let the inevitable spills slow down his relentless drive to become one of the world's great bull riders. In this extreme sport, the rider has to maintain the 8-second rule, the standard time they must stay mounted on the bull in order to qualify for a score in bull riding competitions.
How much do bull riders make? I think the top guy was a guy called, is a guy called J.B. Morney. I think he's a millionaire, but is that typical for other bull riders? Like, what kind of money do they make? Is it enough for them to live on? Or do they need to have a job on the side?
For bull riding events, the rider must stay atop the bucking bull for 8 seconds while only holding a bull rope.
Oh my God.
The timer starts when the bull's shoulder or flank breaks the plane of the gate as it exits the chute. The rider's free hand cannot touch the bull or themselves. The ride is timed until the rider touches the ground or the bull with their free hand. To qualify, the rider must remain mounted for the full 8 seconds while spurring in a rhythmic motion. If the rider makes 8 seconds, they are scored based on degree of control and aggression. If the rider fails to stay on for 8 seconds, they receive no score. The 8-second standard is designed to test the rider's skill and athleticism in maintaining control while the massive bull is bucking and spurring with explosive power. The clock only stops when the rider is thrown off or dismounts. This 8-second ride is considered the heart and soul of professional bull riding competition. Ranked 18th in the world, Mason was well on his way to bull riding stardom when fate took a tragic turn. It was January 15th, 2019, at the National Western Stock Show in Denver, Colorado. He drew a notoriously tough bull named Hard Times in the chutes that day.
Oh my God, what a name. Hard Times. I mean, you look at that and you think, oh, I'm in for a hard time, eh?
Weighing over a ton, Hard Times is described by those familiar with him as a strong and athletic bull, but not possessing an unusually aggressive or mean disposition. He simply has an innate knack and drive for bucking riders off his back. Hard Times had competed in about 30 events prior to that fateful day. A relatively short career for a seasoned bucking bull. By many accounts from his owner and stock contractors, Hard Times is decent-tempered for a bull bred and raised in this testy rodeo environment. The other riders wished young Mason well as he gritted his teeth. Wearing his protective vest and spurs, Mason nodded his readiness to the gate operator. At the buzzer, Hard Times exploded from the chute, with Mason gritting it out atop his surging back. True to his fierce name, Hard Times exploded from the chute.
Look how high it gets in the air. It looks like it's at least 2 feet off the ground right now.
Whipping and bucking violently to dislodge his rider. Mason rode forcefully, leaning into each buck and twist, as Hard Times strove to dislodge his unwanted passenger. The ride lasted bull riding's signature 8 seconds, an eternity clinging to a whirling ton of raging bull muscle, before Hard Times succeeded in launching the young cowboy skyward. Mason likely felt the initial thrill of besting the beast for those interminable seconds in the spotlight, but gravity took over, pulling Mason downwards into Hard Times' still churning path. The bull's back hooves battered Mason's unprotected chest in a grim twist of fate. His final ride ended in an unspeakable tragedy no one could have foreseen. As Mason landed on the hard-packed dirt and scrambled to get his feet back under him, Hard Times wheeled, and his heavy back hooves came down directly on Mason's chest in a deadly stroke of bad luck. What about Mason's protective gear? Bull riding is an inherently dangerous sport, but over the years, riders have adopted more protective equipment to minimize risks. Following the death of legendary Lane Frost, all professional riders now wear a specialized vest made of impact-absorbing material that protects the torso from the bull's blows. The vests are designed to diffuse the force of the bull's movements rather than resist them outright. Many riders also wear helmets to protect their heads in case of impact with the bull or arena surface.
But that vest, if that bull knocks you off and accidentally steps on you, that vest isn't going to protect you. It's obviously a good idea and it helps to a degree, but it doesn't eliminate all of the risk. You probably can't, can you? You can't eliminate all of the risk in this sport.
Despite these precautions, severe injuries and deaths still occur, rarely. The enormous size and power of a bucking bull subjects riders to forces difficult to protect against. In Mason's case, he was wearing a protective vest, but the bull's hoof landed directly on his chest, with enough focused force to fatally damage his heart and internal organs. The vest successfully shielded his ribs and outer torso, but the localized pressure and internal trauma proved unsurvivable. While safety equipment prevents countless injuries and death every season, fate sometimes intervenes with an impact at an angle or location that overwhelms even the best modern protections. The chest and abdomen remain vulnerable areas that vests cannot always fully reinforce when a 1,500-pound bull directs its hoof onto a rider. After his agonizing injury, Mason stood and took a few shaky steps before grasping his chest and collapsing in the arena. The wild roar of the crowd had quieted to gasps of horror and silence. Emergency medical personnel quickly attended to Mason and transported him to Denver Health Medical Center. At the hospital, 25-year-old Mason Lowe tragically succumbed to his severe internal injuries. The official cause of death was listed as massive heart damage, resulting from the direct blow of 1,500 pounds to his chest. When animals are involved in the death of a human, they are often euthanized. But in evaluating the accident soon after, the Professional Bull Riders Association and rodeo officials determined the bull, Hard Times, was not at fault.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it's fair. At the end of the day, the bull, for it to be so angry and stuff, it feels like antagonized. I don't think it's fair to euthanize the bull if it's involved in a fatality. It's not the bull's fault. It's trying to get the guy off its back. What do you guys think about that? I don't think it's fair. I'm glad that in this situation they didn't euthanize it, but I think that they shouldn't do it. I think as a policy they should not euthanize them.
After Mason was thrown from the bull and landed on his back, Hard Times instantaneously spun to follow his instinct to kick at his fallen rider. When his back hooves blindly came down, they directly impacted Mason's exposed chest with catastrophic results. However, Hard Times had no malicious intent and was simply reacting true to his wild and athletic nature. With no fair means to ascribe blame to an animal acting on deeply ingrained impulses, Hard Times was cleared to return to competition when healed from the event. To this day, over 4 years later, Hard Times remains an active and eager bucking bull on the rodeo circuits across the regions. His owner and handlers take no extra precautions with Hard Times based on the fluke tragedy in Denver. To their knowledge, he has shown no indications of growing more ornery or developing a taste for fallen cowboys. Hard Times gives every rider the full challenge of his raw power and agility. He continues to thrill.
Man, I mean, as a bull rider though, if you see that you've drawn Hard Times, it must give you an extra element of dread, considering what happened to Mason. It's got to be in the back of your mind somewhere.
Crowds, with his explosive exits from the chutes and fierceness in trying to unseat those daring enough to climb on his back. For Hard Times, it remains strictly business as usual. Buck hard, kick high, and give these cowboys a run for 8 long seconds. In a sport where tragedy rarely rears its head, Mason Lowe's accidental death stunned the tight-knit rodeo community. As Mason took his last labored breaths on the arena floor, surrounded by fellow bullfighters who tried valiantly to protect him, the National Western Stock Show was plunged into an unprecedented pall of grief. Flags flew at half-mast, black mourning bands dotted cowboy hats in tribute, and tears flowed freely from sun-weathered faces, who all felt Mason's loss as keenly as family. In the immediate aftermath of Mason's shocking passing, fellow bull rider and close friend Jess Lockwood grieved the loss of his comrade. While processing his emotions, Jess decided to craft a meaningful keepsake from a piece of Mason himself, the leather chaps Mason wore on his final ride. Jess carefully selected scraps from the chaps and painstakingly shaped them into a cross, the iconography reflecting both the cowboy way of life and memorializing a life cut too short. He kept the cross in his gear bag going forward as a touching tribute to his friend, now riding the heavenly rodeo. Recognizing the symbolism and care put into that first cross, the Professional Bull Riders Organization later instituted the Mason Lowe Award to honor his legacy. Now bestowed annually to the rider logging the highest marked ride each season, the coveted award comes encased in a customized glass box, with a leather cross made from Mason's last chaps set prominently inside. While Mason unfortunately met an untimely end, these crosses ensure his courageous spirit lives on to inspire future generations of riders facing down lethal hooves in the arena dust. In the years since his passing, Mason's legacy continues to spur young riders towards greatness. Scholarship funds ensure that the next generation of fearless cowboys carry forward Mason's grit and tenaciousness in the arena. Mason Lowe may be gone too soon from this earth, but his courageous spirit and inspiring legacy will live on eternally through all those young cowboys, tough and foolish enough to test themselves against bucking bovine mountains of muscle. It takes that special breed of invincible grit and guts to chase the thrill that Mason devoted his life to.
Missing a tooth.
The dangerous dance of man versus beast in the rodeo arena.
Jeez. Wow, what a story. I mean, I guess he died doing something he loved, and most people would probably love to go out in that way, I suppose. But there's no denying at 25, he was he went way beyond, way before his time. Just such a long life left to live he had, you know. But at the end of the day, I do agree that, or I at least have the perspective that it's not the bull's fault. It's never the bull's fault. The bull doesn't want to be ridden by somebody. It's in its nature to get the person off him. What happened to Mason was a complete tragedy, obviously. But I think the policy of euthanizing bulls, if they're involved in fatalities, is just not fair. Let me know what you guys think. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.